Welcome to At Home and Abroad with Harrison Walker. Join us each week as we follow our curiosity, diving deep into the familiar and the foreign. Reach beyond your front door as we uncover new perspectives, explore intriguing ideas, and have real conversations with the best guests. Ready for something different? Let's get started.
On August 6th, 2018, the world lost the chef of the century. Joel Robuchon operated more than a dozen restaurants across the world, including Bangkok, Bordeaux, Hong Kong, Las Vegas, London, Macau, and more, that have all been widely celebrated and acclaimed. Just before his death, he had earned 31 Michelin Guide stars, among them the most any restaurateur has ever held. Chef Robuchon wasn't always on the path to culinary greatness. He was born at the end of the Second World War in 1945 in Poitiers, France. He was one of 4 children in a modest home, and he set his sights early on the clergy. He attended the seminary in Châtillon-sur-Sèvre. However, he enjoyed making weeknight meals with the nuns. Something there then sparked that fire, and in 1960, at the tender age of 15, he became an apprentice chef at the Relais de Poitiers Hotel. By the age of 29, Robuchon was appointed head chef at the Hotel Concorde Lafayette, where he managed 90 cooks. Chef Robuchon is thought to have been the most influential French chef of the post-Nouvelle Cuisine era. His style was minimalist, highlighting the fresh, natural ingredients in his dishes. He is also said to have been a perfectionist, requiring the same of those who apprenticed beneath him. Many of the world's greatest chefs have been influenced by Robuchon, even the great Gordon Ramsay. Legend has it that Robuchon once expressed displeasure with a dish of langoustine ravioli that Ramsay had prepared. True to his temper, Ramsay was upset and started banging about the kitchen, to which Robuchon responded by flinging a plate at him. That perfection led to incredible success. When Robuchon died, the culinary world mourned the loss of the king of French cuisine.
It seems that often those who pursue the culinary arts have been inspired by some kind of experience with food that they've had during their childhood. I have many such memories of my own.
I do too. I can actually remember a bowl of Campbell's chicken noodle soup that was served to me at my nursery school, and I must have been like 3 or 4 years old. Not a great culinary delight, but it was a big time of change in my life, and that simple bowl of soup was probably a real comfort to my little self. According to Susan Whitbourne, professor of psychological and brain sciences at the University of Massachusetts, food memories are more sensory than other memories in that they involve really all 5 senses. So when you're that thoroughly engaged with the stimulus, it has a more powerful effect.
Well, often we remember our mothers or grandmothers baking or preparing meals, comforting us with their tasty treats. It's not always women, though, is it? Did your dad like to cook?
He did like to cook, but what I remember most about my dad is the bread he would bake on the weekends. Oh my God, they were these big, poofy loaves of white bread. They were so good. What about you?
Well, my mom did most of the cooking at our home when I was growing up, but, my dad did have some specialties. One was his spaghetti sauce, another was his bean soup. He was really quite proud of both of them. Oh, and a very simple thing. He made a mean scrambled egg sandwich. They were never dry like so many scrambled eggs out there. And I learned this from Gordon Ramsay pretty late in life.
So did I. He has the best scrambled eggs. And who knew there was such an art to cooking simple scrambled eggs?
So much to learn, Harris. That is what I absolutely love about cooking.
Yeah, and I think that's also why some people find cooking so intimidating.
Maybe they put too much pressure on themselves. But just like Chef Robuchon said, there is no such thing as a perfect meal. We can always do better.
Yep, that's absolutely right. So much to learn.
So true. So do you like cooking shows?
Yeah, I do.
I love to pick up what I can from top chefs.
Well, you are in luck today then, Walker.
Perfect.
It is a privilege to speak with Chef Yannick Anton today. Chef Yannick is the executive chef at Signature's Restaurant and Cuisine chef instructor at Le Cordon Bleu Culinary Arts Institution in Ottawa, Canada. Le Cordon Bleu is the leading standard for vocational and higher education programs in culinary arts and hotel management worldwide, and has been serving up culinary excellence for over 125 years. Welcome to At Home and Abroad.
Thank you very much.
Le Cordon Bleu has established a remarkable and world-renowned reputation in the field of culinary education with over 30 campuses across 20 countries. How did Le Cordon Bleu become such a well-recognized leader in the industry?
But when Mr. Cointreau actually took over the Cordon Bleu, he had a big vision, basically. So first there was a school in Paris. Then he developed a bit Europe with London, Spain, and he started to extend worldwide. So for Mr. Cointreau, what's very important is the teaching of the technique, the French technique. So he always had that vision, and he always told us chefs, we have to teach a technique. Le Cordon Bleu is based on technique, French technique. So that's what we've been pushing over the years, developing. Obviously, 30 years ago will be like more recipes on that area in time. Now we still continue by pushing and develop recipe up to date to the modern world in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Still using some traditional recipe because it's very important we don't forget where we come from. And that the base is very, very important to understand, to be able to create modern dishes that we see right now on Instagram and different social media. So it's quite important to still stitch those base. And then we modernize also with the new trends that are going on around the world.
Right. And these techniques that you teach, these are consistent, I understand, across all the campuses across the world, these French techniques.
Yes, so definitely we have the program, the Cordon Bleu program is based on 3 levels. So you have basic, intermediate, and superior, which each time the student have to pass an exam to go to the next level.
Okay.
So the basic level, that's where we really teach the basic technique, the traditional technique from the French culinary world. The intermediate, we go more about the specialties, the region of France. Oh. So still, what is very, very nice actually about the intermediate is because we work on specialties. So that's what made the reputation also of France. If by example, if you go to the south of France, you have the bouillabaisse. If you go to Alsace, you have the choucroute. If you go to around Tours area, you have a pitivier. So all this very traditional technique we made France, we also teach them in an intermediate level. The only thing we did is we modernize a bit the way we present them.
Okay.
It's also to teach the students that with a traditional recipe doesn't mean the plating is not nice or it's more like family style or casual. Yes, it is for when you serve that at home, but we can also bring that back to a plate and make something actually very nice with those traditional recipe. Then after we have the superior level where then we teach modern technique up to date to what's going on in the world, where we leave a bit more the students into creativity, the way they plate their preparation, and but still teaching some techniques into it that we see really relevant for the students they can use in their future, because it's not only teaching them recipe and it stays in between the school because you cannot redo them. It's teaching something which actually is very useful for their career, for their future.
Exactly. Launching them into their own careers post graduation. Exactly. And that's something I wanted to ask you, because if someone finds themselves with this calling, this passion for cuisine and the culinary arts, how does one go about becoming a student at Le Cordon Bleu? Is it fairly rigorous in terms of being accepted at Le Cordon Bleu? What does it take to be successful?
But first, we ask the student to do an essay about their passion. Why do you come to the Cordon Bleu? Mm-hmm. So first, we ask them to write a few words about that. Then after, honestly, we accept a different range of people. I have right now in class, I have 3 retired military.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah. And I have some young kids who wants to go in the business. I have different ethnicity also. Don't forget, because the Cordon Bleu is worldwide, also we attract a lot of foreigner students. So from Asia, India, South America also. So very different. It makes a class very interesting because we have a very different range of people. And the way we built actually the courses are meant to be for everyone, because the way they are going, at the speed or the process they are going, it's available for everyone. So that's what it's very, very interesting. And for us, it makes it also very interesting because we see different background and we learn also from those different backgrounds. So it's quite interesting, the exchange suddenly we can have with a student, and we grow together toward along these 9 months. It's almost to get birth, to be honest. So
but it is. You're launching these newly educated people into the world.
Yeah.
It is like giving birth a little bit. And everybody will be bringing their own experience and their own perhaps culinary backgrounds and experience into the classrooms. So even though you're providing that real hearty foundation in French techniques, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of diversity in what your students are bringing. So that is quite interesting.
Yeah, and I have a lot also of person who are retired and they arrive, they are terrorized. They're like, I never really cooked. I don't know how to handle a knife. I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah.
The program is done to teach you to get
it's so accessible.
Exactly. So it's quite interesting to see, even with some person who doesn't want to make it a career.
Right.
It's more for fun in a certain way.
Yeah.
They actually succeed as good as a young person who wants to go after in the business. It's quite amazing, interesting.
That is really amazing. You just might find me in your classroom.
Maybe. We are here.
You might be frightened, though. I would be terrified, but you might be terrified as well to find me in your classroom. So you are an exceptional chef in your own right. So what attracted you first to the world of the culinary arts?
So for me, I found myself lucky, to be honest. Why? Because since a very young age, that's what I want to do. So, and when I say young age, I'm talking about maybe 10 or 11 years old.
Wow. Okay.
Probably because my grandparents, they didn't have a restaurant, but they were a bit in the business in a certain way. I have the friend of my parents, their son was a chef in United States, in Washington. So I don't know, something suddenly clicked in my head very, very young. And I always knew that's what I wanted to do. And in France, around the age of 14 years old, that's where we take a bit of a decision. We continue school or we go into a professional school to learn a career. And for me, it was very easy. It was not even a single question in my mind. What am I going to do in my life? And that's why I'm calling myself fortunate to have been able to identify what I want to do in my life very young, because
so many people don't have that, right?
Exactly.
So many people have to really search for what fulfills them. And it sounds like to me that this has been a lifelong passion and a calling for you.
No, definitely. And when I start to work, I start to work, I was 16, so very young age.
Wow.
And I never regret a single moment. Even if we know the culinary industry sometimes is not easy, by the hour, by a lot of different things, the stress and on and on. But I never regret that. And my passion is actually to try to bring a smile to people actually when they come and eat my food. I always been striving for that. And now in 2024, I even change a bit my way of thinking. And in the future, I want to bring actually health into my food to heal people or to have a concept, because I found it's important. It's not just food. We can bring something to people. So I'm working in a lot of different ways. Not the way I used to be trained, but it's something very interesting, a new challenge. To be honest, I'm a big learner. Like I'm still a student.
Yeah.
And that's what I wish. I wish that to everyone, to be always a student, because you're always starving to know something new.
Absolutely.
And you never stop. And I still do research. I go home at night and still read cooking book and see a new technique, and because you never know anything. At the end of the day, you never know anything.
It's so true. It's so true. And it keeps your mind young and fresh.
Yeah.
If you're constantly innovating and you're constantly looking for something else to feed that need to learn.
Exactly.
You are a lucky guy.
Yeah, no, I am actually. And I'm still pushing myself. Sometimes I push myself even more than the student.
Well, I'm sure you're a good role model in that way for them then.
Well, I don't know, ask them. But no, it's it's for me, it's a passion. To be honest, I always refer to something. When you go to a Reiki session, energy. If we talked about energy, so you person lay down on the table, the Reiki master pass the energy along your body, if you believe in that. But what do? We pass on the energy to your hand, we dish up, we bring food to your plate.
Yes.
So if you have a good energy and a good positive energy when you put the food on the plate, when you prepare the food, the customer will feel that.
They'll receive it.
If you're mad and with a lot of anger, that's what you will put into your food. So your food might be a bit sour, but I'm a big believer in that spirituality side of our business, actually.
So, Chef Yannick, I want to talk a little bit about what's been happening over the past several decades. It seems like there's been this explosion of interest in the culinary arts. And perhaps a lot of this is due to the proliferation of television cooking shows and the rise of the celebrity chef and their cookbooks, and of course, social media. How has this impacted your field?
Well, for sure, we have more and more students interested because of what's going on TV. Like you said, social media, it's huge on those days. So we cannot avoid that. There is definitely a difference between my generation and a young generation, because I was not born with Instagram. So we see things a bit differently. Yes. In terms of how to do our food, but or for thinking, I will say. But I think we need to be smart enough to use social media, to use different social media, like Facebook is maybe a bit less now, but even TV, to actually promote our industry. And that's why a TV show like MasterChef became so popular, because people have an interest and that makes them dream in a certain way.
Right.
Okay. Now it's TV, it's Instagram. That goes where it goes. Okay. So reality is a bit different.
Do you find that people have an idea or a belief that it's going to be easier than it is, and then they show up and it's a little different?
The difference between, I will say, my generation and now, right now they are more creative in a certain way.
Okay.
Why? Because you can see right away what's going on in a 3 Michelin star restaurant in Europe or in the States or in China, whatever. So they have a visual very quick.
Yeah, the world is a lot smaller now, isn't it?
Exactly. So they have a vision on how to plate, actually more accurate than we used to have 40 years ago. So that's definitely for sure. The only issue, I will say in a certain way, they have all the information very quick.
Mm-hmm.
And so they think it's going to go fast, or they come out of the school, they are executive chef. They don't see that they have to pay the due.
Right. There's a process of seasoning.
Exactly.
Right?
There is a process of growing you need to do, because each position you're going to make from the basic one to the executive chef is very important, because that will make you even a better leader or manager.
Mm-hmm.
So we see a lot of actually young kids becoming chef right away. For sure, we would like them to have more experience, go around a bit. But what social media create is that fast pace where they are not patient. That we see it right away. And in class, we battle, we battle that. No, and it's funny because this afternoon I was talking to another chef, and he was saying in sport is the same thing.
Really?
And I didn't know. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, I said, I read an article where in sport also they think they're going to be running to the Olympics tomorrow.
Yeah, it's the nature of the beast now.
Yes, totally. So there is a lot of impatience, and things needs to happen now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what a bit create Instagram and all these things is that because they have access so fast to a lot of things, they think it goes as fast when they're working on the real life. So we try to tell them a bit.
Prepare them for that.
Slow down.
Yeah, slow down. Yeah. Well, speaking of change, I noticed that Le Cordon Bleu offers a diploma in plant-based culinary arts. Now, I doubt this would have been on offer when your venerable institution was founded in 1895 in Paris. Do you foresee other trends and shifts in food?
For sure was probably not at that time, but to give you an idea, already 25 years ago, Mr. Cointreau, president, had also a trademark under Le Cordon Bleu vert. So the green Cordon Bleu. So he already had that vision about the aspect of nature. So in the restaurant, when we at the beginning of Signature, I needed to have actually a plant-based menu. I'm talking about that like 20 years ago.
Really? That far back?
Yeah. And the last 5 years, they started to put the program in London, the plant-based program. Then here I start to work on that program 2 years ago. And we offer the first program just before Christmas, where we have the first cohort of plant-based diplômés. So that was very, very interesting. And actually, the fact to work on that program, that's what start to make my vision on cuisine change a bit, because I did so much research, and I also see the potential in where the world is going.
Right.
And if you notice, even a restaurant like 11 Madison in New York City became plant-based. So there is a lot of big chefs, iconic chefs, like Daniel Mulb. Same thing with Alain Ducasse, which is one of the world's most famous chefs, who has tons of restaurants around the world. He talked more and more about naturality, so the nature in the plate. Fermentation, thing like that. Bon, we know all Noma in Copenhagen. That's the one who put the fermentation back in a map. But a lot of big chefs come to that. And to be honest, for sure, the chefs now try to educate people onto whatever is vegetarian or veganism. And I think the most important part is actually to educate. Because if I tell someone, okay, stop the meat, I will have a blockage.
Yes, absolutely.
But if I teach how to prepare vegetable without saying something.
Without a direction.
Exactly. Without calling it vegan. I can serve you a dish in a restaurant and say it's a ravioli
Right.
and don't say the word vegan.
You would never know.
People won't know.
Mm-hmm.
I could trick actually sauces, French sauces, and do some very like a veal stock in a certain way. And I can tell you don't see barely the difference between a real veal stock or French sauce and the one I did for plant-based. I could work a lot on that to have the taste. I worked a lot on the taste those dishes could have. And I'm very happy because it was a big success actually. But if you don't put the logo vegan, people will eat it and will be very happy. So it's a question of education. It's a question of slowly bringing that to the habit of people and say, hey, look, you just eat that and that was fine. There is no meat and you're filled up and everything is beautiful. So teaching and make people understand. And it's a process, definitely. It's a process.
Well, you're executive chef at Signature's Restaurant, a French fine dining establishment. Where do you find your inspiration? You talked about your vision, but your inspiration for your beautifully crafted and creative dishes.
Inspiration, but I read, I have 1,000 books. My problem is I buy too much books.
It's your lifelong learning, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have a space problem at home.
Don't we all?
So, no, honestly, I read a lot. I try always to be informed of what's new. Mm-hmm. What's going on in the world. I have a lot of connection around the world. So I talk a lot to my friend. I said, okay, what's going on? And so they tell me a bit in what trends are going or things like that. So I adapt myself or my ideas to a bit what's going on. But like I said, mainly since I did the plant-based, I will focus a bit more on nature and become something a bit different than just cooking and I won't say with no meaning, but I want to bring health to people. So I will go more that way.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Chef Yannick. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. You can learn more about Le Cordon Bleu by going to www.cordonbleu.edu and follow Chef Yannick on Instagram at AntonYannick70. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
The pride and enjoyment Chef Yannick takes in his work is so obvious, isn't it, Walker?
Well, there is something pretty beautiful about creating beautiful, nutritious, and delicious food.
There certainly is.
So why do you think we're so fascinated with cooking now? I mean, there's so many cooking shows, food bloggers, and influencers out there.
I don't know. I think maybe it's because it's romantic. You know, it has emotion, it has passion, it has beauty and creativity. Celebrity chefs are to the culinary arts world what supermodels are to the beauty industry.
So true. In an article written about the cult of celebrity chefs, Nathan Chen said, "We've moved from simply savoring dishes to idolizing the creators. These chefs armed with their spatulas and charismatic personalities aren't just cooking, they're performing."
Yeah.
They really are in a class of their own.
They certainly are. Like Iron Chef, an oldie, but a goodie. You can feel the stress just watching these chefs work.
I love that one too.
I don't think I've necessarily learned anything from Iron Chef, except that perhaps I would be totally hopeless in that arena because it's quite a spectacle.
Well, watching them cook is really like watching an Olympian perform. They create and cook with such intensity and precision. Though they are competing against others, they're also competing with themselves. They're driven to maintain their own reputation for excellence in their field.
So true.
Jim Davies of Carleton University proposed 3 reasons why we love to watch sports, and I thought it really could apply to why we like to watch chefs perform as well.
Yeah, cool. So let's hear it.
Well, he points out that we love to play and our brains are stimulated when we watch others engage in physical activity.
Well, the way these chefs move about the kitchen, there is nothing sedentary about it. It's really physical.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, we love drama, he said, and there's plenty of that in the kitchen.
No doubt.
Now, there's also a sense of awe that's induced when we watch spectacular performances. this is really addicting.
Yeah, so that all makes good sense to me. So do you have a favorite cooking show, Walker?
Anything that featured Anthony Bourdain has really topped my list.
Me too.
Now, I could listen to Anthony talk all day. He truly was a beautiful writer, and his respect and love for food was obvious.
He has been described as a world-renowned traveler and storyteller. And of course, he was an excellent chef. It was such a loss and a shock, I think. I loved his shows because you felt like you were traveling alongside him, experiencing the world's cuisine. He once said, "If I'm an advocate for anything, it's to move as far as you can, as much as you can, across the ocean or simply across the river. Walk in someone else's shoes or at least eat their food." Those are words I can live by.
Well, how many of us have come back home from a trip abroad only to discover that we've a newfound interest in learning to cook the food we experienced while on vacation?
Well, I know I have. I've actually ordered cookbooks while I'm still away so that they're there on my doorstep when I get back.
I love that. It's also a way, though, of keeping that vacation experience going, isn't it? Long after you return back to normal life.
Absolutely. Instead of flipping just through photos and reliving memories, I make saganaki.
I like the way you roll there, Harris. I can't say that I've ever had a saganaki I didn't like.
Me neither.
Now, when I was on excavation in Greece, I would have saganaki every single day. Doesn't matter where I have it. It brings back memories now of eating outside with a team of archaeologists as the sun is setting over the Mediterranean.
That's a pretty sweet memory, Walker.
Another one of my favorite food memories was during my honeymoon when we were traveling through the Loire Valley. I had this bowl of lobster bisque, which was literally, and I'm not joking here, life-changing.
A bowl of lobster bisque that was life-changing, okay?
I know, it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it was that good. The flavor was magical, so magical that I almost named our first child Orléans after the town where the restaurant was located.
Oh my God, you were not kidding. It must have been one hell of a bowl of soup.
Well, I don't joke about my food, Harris. What about you?
Not. Well, this is really simple, but the first time I went to France, my oldest two kids were just about 1 and 2 years old. And one late afternoon, Greg took them out to the garden, leaving me in this dwindling sunlight with just a bowl of olives, a baguette, a piece of yummy cheese, and a gorgeous glass of Bordeaux.
Oh my God, that sounds like heaven.
It was heaven. I still think about it almost every day. Not much cooking involved, but I bet Chef Robuchon would appreciate the simple nature of that memorable little meal. So we know that Chef Robuchon is iconic, but have you ever heard of James Beard?
I have. Tell me what you know.
So James Beard is known as the Dean of American Cookery after being given the title by the New York Times in 1954. He has authored several important cookbooks, served as the host of the earliest television cooking show back in 1946, and has been referred to as a pioneer foodie. In 1956, he opened a cooking school where he taught for 30 years.
Wow, what a trailblazer.
Yeah, and the James Beard Foundation, which was created in 1986 after his passing a year earlier, they serve as a nonprofit organization whose mission is to celebrate, support, and elevate the people behind America's food culture and champion a standard of good food anchored in talent, equity, and sustainability. So that's a big legacy.
So what about Julia Child? She introduced North Americans to French cuisine. Do you have her 1961 classic, Mastering the Art of French Cooking?
I can't say that I do, but I do adore her.
One of my favorite quotations of hers is, "A party without a cake is just a meeting."
Exactly.
I think about it all the time.
Right? That's just fact. I love that. So, or even better, I was 32 when I started cooking. Up until then, I just ate.
That one actually gives me hope that I still have time to level up my French cooking skills.
It's never too late, Walker. You can join me at Le Cordon Bleu with Chef Yannick.
Perfect. I'm there.
Good. But there is more to life than French cuisine, Walker. In recent years, there's been a tremendous appreciation for the food of other cultures, including Mediterranean, Asian, Creole, and Southwestern, to name just a few. Emeril Lagasse popularized Cajun and Creole cuisine, just as Bobby Flay really familiarized the general public with Southwestern food. I actually went to Bobby Flay's restaurant in New York, and it was fantastic.
Well, just like artists, all chefs tend to have their own style, don't they?
They certainly do.
For instance, Jamie Oliver is known for his simple Italian cuisine, but over the years, he's developed a reputation for his healthy, tasty meals.
And quick to prepare, too. He's a big advocate of fresh food that isn't time-consuming or expensive.
And he's really shone a light on the poor quality of food that children were being fed in school cafeterias as well.
Yeah, he's made some really positive change.
It's not all about the Michelin stars, is it? Though I've been fortunate enough to experience some pretty phenomenal meals at Michelin star restaurants. There's real beauty in simple food, though, and I think the best chefs understand that.
Yeah, it's food in its most simple and natural form.
Right, like the farm-to-table movement. I love doing this on a mini scale with my own little garden.
I know, me too. The farm-to-table movement originated in California and is typically attributed to Chef Alice Waters, who opened Chez Panisse back in 1971. Organic local ingredients were the hallmark of her offerings.
Yum.
Yeah, some of the top restaurants now grow their own ingredients on site if their location allows for it, guaranteed fresh. One of these restaurants is Chef Thomas Keller's esteemed restaurant, The French Laundry, which has an extensive garden of its own across the street. Or, closer to home, the restaurant at Langdon Hall Country House Hotel, a Relais and Chateau property, boasts an impressive kitchen garden where they grow a range of produce. Executive chef Jason Bangerter is a master at transforming these ingredients into scrumptious dishes.
Well, we're moving full circle away from the hyper-processed foods of the 20th century and back to more simple times when we knew where we sourced our food. Just makes it more meaningful somehow and definitely more delicious. So have you ever wondered what dishes celebrity chefs crave?
Probably not their own highly complex creations, I'm guessing.
You're right. My very own celebrity chef crush, Chef Thomas Keller, loves a good old-fashioned, traditional roasted chicken.
Well, that's pretty straightforward.
While somehow I suspect my roast chicken may be a little less impressive than his, I just have a hunch.
I don't know about that, Walker. You're a pretty great cook. Chef Alain Ducasse, who has accrued a whopping 21 Michelin stars over his career, has stated that his go-to food choice is a roasted seasonal veg dish. It sounds gorgeous to me, especially since the dish contains egg, cheese, and garlic, which are 3 of my favorite food groups. I'm going to have to dig up that recipe, Walker. But there are a host of chefs who prefer good old-fashioned sandwiches and American classics as well, like our beloved Anthony Bourdain. He preferred a pastrami sandwich. And Bobby Flay?
A burger.
Yep, great guess.
Well, a bit of an educated guess. I came across it in our research for today's show.
Okay.
Well, Harris, so beyond chef favorites, what would you have for your last meal if you could choose?
Well, it's funny that you asked that, Walker, because I just said the other day that if I could only eat 2 things for the rest of my life, it would be pizza and eggs. And I think because they're both very versatile, right? So maybe a Mediterranean pizza as my last meal. Gluten-free, of course.
A little weird, but okay. Bobby Flay has apparently stated he would have that cheeseburger as well as his last meal, but I've read that he would jazz it up with some chipotle ketchup, jalapenos, some potato chips on top, or a little extra something.
That sounds so good. My stomach's growling.
Not for me. That might turn my tummy, and that's the last thing I want at the end of my days.
I guess so, right?
Funnily enough, Chef Thomas Keller does have a recipe for roast chicken, which is called last meal chicken.
That is hilarious.
Yep, which is very different than most of the dishes Keller creates. In fact, when Anthony Bourdain traveled to Keller's restaurant, The French Laundry, back in 2002, he said that the luxurious food experience was akin to driving a Rolls Royce naked in mink underpants.
Well, that's a pretty difficult experience to match.
And very vivid description as well.
Yeah, that's it.
But that was before Keller even surprised Bourdain with a dessert made quite unique to him, a tobacco leaf and coffee custard.
Wow. There was actually a book that was published many years ago called My Last Supper, 50 Great Chefs and Their Final Meals. Doesn't that sound like a great book to read?
Oh, that sounds great.
I know. So what would your last meal be?
Probably something classic. Probably say roast beef and Yorkshire pudding, a lot of Yorkshire pudding, and a good helping of hot horseradish.
Yummy. Apparently you and Gordon Ramsay are of the same mind.
Oh, well, as Julia Child said, Harris, people who love to eat are always the best people. Thank you for joining us at Home and Abroad with your host, Harrison Walker. If you enjoyed this episode, you would be a real gem if you would rate and review our show. It helps us grow and expand our reach. You can also subscribe to follow us each week as we continue the conversation. Find us on Instagram at Harrison Walker or visit us at www.athomeandabroadpodcast.com. We have great merch, just saying, and of course, we would love to hear from you. And for you truly dedicated fans who have listened all the way to the end of this episode, we offer exclusive interviews, outtakes, challenges, and more on our paid channel. Not even the cost of a latte once a month, depending, of course, where you buy your coffee.